Community leaders are also condemning a rise in anti-Muslim hate across this country since the start of the Israel-Hamas war on October 7th. The Prime Minister said today Canadians need to be there for each other.
We hear each other's pain and grief and support each other. And yes, what's happening in the Middle East right now is causing a lot of devastating emotions, fear, anger, grief on all sorts of different communities, but particularly both the Muslim and the Jewish communities across Canada.
Amira Elghawaby is Canada's Special Representative on combating Islamophobia. You and I have been talking about the scourge of Islamophobia for years. We have been doing these stories, talking about this issue. Are we at a real low point? Is this as bad as it's ever been, do you think, in this country?
You're right, JP. We've had these conversations for years. We have, of course, seen efforts to bring Canadians together, to lean into our values of social unity, of cohesion, and try to get beyond division, get beyond Islamophobia and divisive politics and divisive rhetoric. Sadly, in this current crisis, we are indeed worried about a rise in Islamophobia, just as we are worried about a rise in anti-Semitism. And when it comes to the way Canadian Muslims, Arabs, and Palestinians are feeling right now, people are getting it on both sides. They're feeling, at the one hand, extremely anguished about what they're seeing, the scenes of devastation, many who have family members in Gaza, as well here in Canada, feeling worried about, can they express their feelings? Can they share this with their fellow Canadians? Or do they need to remain silent?
Yeah. Give us a sense, give our audience a sense of what Muslims, Arabs in this country have been going through since October 7th. I don't necessarily want to read off this list of violent incidents, but there has been a number of hate crimes reported in this country. Just give people a sense of what the community has faced.
Right. A few blocks from here, an Islamic care center was vandalized. An individual went and, covered the windows in feces. We've had women in hijab like myself spat on, harassed. We've had women, one woman in Montreal with a Palestinian flag on her car, an individual yelling at her really, really horrible things in front of her children. Similarly in Winnipeg, a woman dropping off her son at school. We've had vandalism at apartment buildings where it says, kill all Muslims, as well on school properties. So we've seen a gamut, sadly, of hateful incidents. We've also seen, on university campuses, in schools, where people are trying to express legitimate viewpoints, being told to stop, or in fact facing serious consequences and repercussions, including losing positions that they may hold or facing expulsion, etc. So there's a real silencing, there's a real chill, but there's also a lot of fear about people's safety.
There's the police-reported hate crimes, too, and then there's the stuff that goes unreported, right? That's part of the equation. Liberal MP Samir Zubairi was talking just a couple days ago about his own sister-in-law, who is visibly Muslim. She was taking her 9-year-old daughter to school, and they were confronted. They were given the middle finger, they were shouted at, profanities were hurled their way, and they didn't go back to school the next day because they were fearful of they might face the same thing again. Do you think that some of the hate crimes that are circulating in our country are not necessarily being reported, and that Muslims are facing microaggressions, indignities every day, and we just don't really have a great sense of just how prevalent that is?
Well, we don't have a good sense of it, to be honest, JP, because as we've actually seen from Stats Canada, 2/3 of hate crimes across the board aren't reported to police. People are, for a variety of reasons, not always comfortable coming forward. And in fact, my office, in collaboration with the Special Envoy on Anti-Semitism, our role is partially as well to provide advice to the government on how do we encourage Canadians to report what they're enduring so that we can come together for finding those solutions, ways to make sure that people are feeling safe.
You said after the October 7th attack that the legacy of 9/11 is being rekindled with the current Israel-Hamas conflict. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think what we've been feeling since this has all started is, Canadian Muslims, Arabs, Palestinians, we're facing almost this immediate call on us to prove our loyalty, prove that we, are fully Canadian, that we, if we wear our keffiyeh or if we wear or fly a Palestinian flag, we're being questioned. Or if we're wanting to participate in, peaceful demonstrations, they're being lumped as hate rallies. Now, certainly we would all stand against hate of any kind, and that's always really important to emphasize. But by the same token, we also have to uphold our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that legitimate speech, peaceful demonstration, these are freedoms that we hold quite sacred in our country. They're a cornerstone of democracy. And so this is something that people are feeling that reminds them of 9/11, where all of a sudden we're not given the same rights and freedoms that our fellow Canadians would be given.
We spoke to the president of B'nai B'rith yesterday, Michael Mostyn, and he describes Jewish Canadians living in fear as well. They're really not feeling comfortable on the streets of this country. It sounds trite, but is there a way to bring this country together? Is there a way to kind of foster a more peaceful environment?
So this is something that leaders across Canada in various spaces need to really step up to do. As I mentioned, Special Envoy in Anti-Semitism and Combating Anti-Semitism, Deborah Lyons and I have been in lots of communication with our Minister, Kamal Kira, who is the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Persons with Disabilities. We've been having these conversations, how can we show leadership, but also, as I said, looking for examples. Right here in Ottawa, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe brought together 30 faith leaders in signing a very important letter demonstrating people's shared values, human rights. As well, we've seen Muslim and Jewish law students at the University of Ottawa similarly do the same, putting out a really beautiful letter demonstrating our shared humanity, demonstrating how we have to show compassion for one another in a moment like this. And we really have to make sure that those voices that are trying to divide us, those bad actors that are out there, that are looking for opportunities to cause this type of rift in our society, as Canadians, we need to come together and say, no, not on our time. We are not going to accept this. We know who we are, and we're going to stand united.
A lot of the folks that have taken to the streets to protest, a lot of members of the Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim communities in this country have been calling for a ceasefire. Is that what you'd like to see in Gaza?
Well, I think it's important to note that it's not only Muslim, Arab, and Palestinians who've been calling for that. We know that right across Canadian society that there's quite a lot of support for that. But for me, my mandate, the role that I hold, is to provide advice to the federal government on Islamophobia. And when we know that, over a 5-year period, we've seen the highest number of deadly attacks on Muslim communities, where we've seen the Afzal family. We're still seeing the trial in that attack going on right now in Windsor. We had the Quebec City mosque attack. We have had deadly violence against our communities. And so my role, my mandate, is to provide advice to the federal government. But how do we address Islamophobia? How do we make sure that the lives of diverse Muslims across this country are, lived with dignity and safety and free from hate of all kind?
But you must be hearing from the community that they want a ceasefire. Have you relayed that to the Prime Minister?
Absolutely, and I put out a statement last week in which I provided a readout of my meeting with the Prime Minister, in which I made it clear this is exactly what our communities are expecting. This is what they hope for. Nobody wants to see the loss of innocent lives, and I know that this has been a push to the federal government, and we have seen some language around humanitarian pauses, but certainly our communities have been quite clear about what they're expecting.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you. Amira Elghawaby is Canada's Special Representative on combating Islamophobia. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.